Well, good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock. We want to make sure we're respectful of your time and our presenters' time as well. We have 21 people in this session right now. I suspect a few more will be joining us, but we'll go ahead and get started. So I will just turn it right over to Dr. Eads and let her introduce herself, or Dr. Lair. I'm not sure who's speaking first, but thank you all for joining us today. And yeah, Dr. Eads, if you'll just begin, that'd be great.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am very pleased to tell you you've got a panel of experts that are going to be sharing promise program information as well as specific recruitment strategies for career and college promise. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session today. Certainly glad that you guys took some time out of your day to join us. And as you can see, hopefully on your screen, the title of the session today that we're going to spend the next few minutes with you talking about is Promise Programs, a Career and College Promise, specifically to leverage student recruitment. We're going to start now by allowing our presenters to just share a little bit, introduce themselves to you here. And so hopefully Marvin is on the line. Marvin?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Marvin Rondon. I'm the Dean of Academic Services and Institutional Effectiveness for Samson Community College. I've been the early college liaison since the early college started back in 2005. The CCP program is under my supervision, and I'm also help with everything that is documentation for the college in numbers, analysis, and everything around needed.
Awesome. And Isai is also with us this morning.
Hey everyone, I'm Isai Robledo. Oversee the CCP program at Randolph Community College. I also oversee the Career Coach program, and most recently the Early College at Randolph Community College. And so just pleased to be able to work with a program and a great department that's helps students.
Awesome. And last but not least, I am Michelle Lair, and I serve at the system office, working specifically with the Career and College Promise program, and even more specifically with our career and technical education programs there as well. So I get to spend a lot of time working with CCP folks all across the state. I actually came to the system office just about a year ago from campus. So I know well the life that you lead on a daily basis on campus, especially when you're working specifically with CCP. So we're going to dive right in because we do want to allow some time for you guys to be able to ask some questions of us later on. So we're going to spend some time today, as you can see, now that we've taken care of the introductions, we're going to explore a little bit the career and college promise and Latinx access. So we'll start out just sort of taking a quick look at CCP policy, sort of looking through the lens of access in regards to that. And then we'll get into some specific outreach and recruitment strategies around Latinx students. We'll take a quick look at what the Latinx participation is like on your campuses. Many of you, I'm sure, are probably well aware of some of the data dashboards that we have available through the system office, so that you can really take a deep dive into that data that can really inform some of the things that you're doing on your campuses. We'll round out our discussion talking with Marvin, who will introduce us to and discuss some of the promise programs and the impact of it, I guess, at Samson Community College. So we'll end up talking about that. And then we'll try to leave you with some ideas, some sort of actionable steps that you guys can take back to your campuses so that you can leverage promise programs and CCP on your campus for your Latinx students in your community. So on your screen, you'll see a definition that I am by no means going to read to you. I meant to ask prior to this if it's okay to make the PowerPoint available afterwards. So we'll be happy to do that if that's okay. There are some links that are embedded within it that are really helpful resources as you guys sort of delve a little bit more into this once you have time after today. But again, just taking a look here, it's just sort of a brief overview of what Career and College Promise is, just so that we're all sort of working from the same place as we go throughout our session time. I'm going to highlight and sort of focus on the words that are outlined there in that definition. And as many of you, again, probably know, back in, I believe it was 2012, the current legislation, the Career and College Promise, came into being and sort of formed sort of an umbrella that all the other former Learning Earn, Huskins, dual enrollment programs now fell under this sort of umbrella legislation, the Career and College Promise. And so within that, you'll see again these highlighted words that I'll just focus on a quick minute. What CCP did in particular was structure the opportunities that we had in our state for dual enrollment. So no longer did we have this sort of cafeteria approach where students were just sort of selecting coursework with no real goal or aim. The structured opportunities actually created pathways, another word here, that aligned to our larger degree programs on our campuses and really sort of gave a roadmap for students to help prepare them for transfer or to enter the workforce. This opportunity, dual enrollment in our state, is available for all qualified North Carolina high school students, and I cannot stress that enough. And the beauty of it is this opportunity is tuition free to our students across the state. So a very wonderful option for students to allow them to access higher education while they're still in high school. We also, sorry, just missed that. We are not in presentation mode, and I just realized that. So let's just make sure that we get there for you so you guys have that. Anyway, our next slide here just sort of looks at the opportunities that are available within the program. And again, I'm not going to go through this in great detail because many of you are very familiar with it, but you will see our college transfer pathways, career and technical pathways that we have available, and obviously our cooperative innovative high school programs that are also available under this Career and College Promise legislation that all of our students here in North Carolina have the ability to access. I will take just a moment to highlight for you though in that career, actually the college transfer pathways, that we do have new programs that I hope you guys have been exposed to and have heard of. Our new Associate in Arts and Teacher Prep and our new Associate in Science and Teacher Prep pathways are now available. We have many colleges who applied and are working to offer these programs across the state. And that is a great way, as you know, to help sort of bolster the need for educators all across our state, and a great way to sort of impact that pipeline of students. And students, again, can begin accessing that as early as high school. So our college transfer programs, as we know, align to our college transfer degree programs, career and technical to our AAS programs. We also have workforce continuing education that is also relatively new within Career and College Promise that students as 11th and 12th graders can access. And then of course, our cooperative innovative high school programs, which allow students as early as 9th grade to begin participating in these joint ventures between LEAs and community colleges in their communities for students to access coursework and to earn a credential with us while they're earning their high school diploma. So just a quick note of the different opportunities. And then this next slide just sort of talks to you a little bit about the eligibility, which we're not going to take a lot of space and time today to get into, but we did provide for you a link. And again, we'll be happy to make this slide presentation available for you to follow it so that you can delve into it a little bit more. But you will see that there are eligibility criteria for both the college transfer and the career and technical pathways, as well as the workforce continuing education pathways. And then there's course eligibility criteria for our cooperative innovative high schools. These criteria look at things like GPA, high school GPA, which is how the majority of our students are accessing this program now. It also allows students to present or demonstrate college readiness in other ways. But again, if you follow that link, you will find all of the particulars around the eligibility for the program. So now that we have a kind of a quick overview of what CCP is, the opportunity that is available to our students across the state as a part of that program, we want to spend our time really delving into now how can we begin to connect students to this opportunity? How can we recruit them so that they can begin to take part in it? And that brings us to Isai.
All right. And so I'm going to speak about some of the challenges that we as institutions and that students face in accessing the CCP program. And so I did want to begin by saying and acknowledging that these challenges aren't necessarily unique to Latinx students, but you'll see the correlation as we go through this list, and especially once we get to the next slide. Again, just like Dr. Tippett mentioned in the opening session, you might hear me say Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, and I may use those interchangeably throughout this conversation. And just know that, as she mentioned, the term Latinx is a more gender neutral, more inclusive term, so I'm going to try my best to use that as much as possible. And a little bit of what Michelle just shared with you all, and I just want to kind of use it as a building block, is that the CCP program really is an ideal opportunity for students who may not have considered themselves as, quote unquote, college bound for various reasons. And this program is an opportunity for them to realize that they really are college ready and college bound. And so again, I just wanted to build off of what Michelle said. And then once we get into, again, how do we get these students into the program? First of all, we have to acknowledge the challenge of access. Who gets to hear about CCP? How do students find out about it? Why is it that only certain students find out? Michelle will share some of some more data here in a little bit. But again, as far as access, one of the components in getting access to students is that we do have to go through school personnel. And so for anyone who's actively worked with CCP, we know, I know that they're trying to shift away from the term audits and auditors, but I know that we're asked by compliance examiners to have school personnel authorize students to enroll in the CCP program. And so by default, that often presents itself with a gatekeeper mentality. And this is not to bash any school personnel, but it does essentially mean that the information getting out to students and then the students enrolling and accessing the community college does funnel through individuals within the school system. And so with that, those school personnel, they essentially determine who is worthy of this opportunity. And so that is a challenge that, again, that we all face. And along with that, just the challenge of school personnel, whether they buy into CCP or not. I mean, any CCP gathering, you hear about the conversation the debate between AP and CCP. So that's its own discussion. But again, in accessing this program, they do have to go through school personnel. Yet another challenge is the parental involvement. Does this information, first of all, it's a challenge to get to the students, but then again, does it make it to the parents? And so we understand that there are communication barriers in getting to parents, whether that's just busy work schedules and they're not able to physically attend events and at the college or at the high school. Sometimes with some Latinx families, there are language barriers, at least on the parental side sometimes. There's also family needs and responsibilities, especially due to COVID, where they might have job losses. And so high school students may be asked or essentially required to work to help offset families' needs. And so again, getting the parents to buy into it or to know about it and to buy into it. Another challenge is transportation. So we know that the classes are free, the tuition is free, But how do these students make it to our campuses for those classes? Do they have vehicle limitations within the household? Do they have carpool options with a friend, a relative? Somehow are they able to face or overcome that barrier? And then lastly, finances. Again, I've already mentioned that the classes are free, but what about the textbooks? What about the fees? What about supplemental materials? Do students, again, in general, all students, do they have the means to overcome this barrier? I mean, I think it varies from college to college. All 58 of us do things differently. And so I just envision a student, any student coming home and saying, Mom, I can take a free biology class, but I'm going to need $200 for the book, plus fees, plus transportation. And so all of a sudden we're faced with, again, additional barriers that these students face. And so again, just wanted to kind of provide that groundwork for some of the challenges, and again, not necessarily unique to Latinx students, but here in the next slide, we'll see more or less how we at Randolph have attempted to respond to these challenges. And I intentionally use the word responses because I think the word solution indicates that a problem or a challenge has been resolved, it's been overcome. And I think we've heard a common theme today in all of the sessions, and that this is an ongoing process in addressing those challenges for students, for Latinx students. And so here I'm going to share just a list of just a few efforts that we've undertaken at Randolph to try to limit how some of the challenges on the previous slide impact students. And so the first effort, the first component with access is trying to get into high school classrooms to promote the program. So I did want to make a disclaimer here. Not all Latinx students are ESL students. I did want to clarify that. However, there are many intermediate and advanced ESL students that could benefit from the CCP program. And so my very first job in education was for a grant program where the ESL testing took place. And so I am very aware that there are students who are essentially native and fluent. However, they are at times categorized as ESL because of that exit exam that they must take. And so again, that's one way to reach those intermediate and advanced students who could benefit from students. Another opportunity in overcoming the access to the information for this program is speaking to and getting to know some of the Spanish for native speakers classes and those teachers. Most recently, it was last fall semester at Randolph, we actually hosted a group of Spanish for native speaker students along with ESL students. And I've hosted campus tours for over a decade at various community colleges. And I personally was extremely pleased to be able to host this group because I think that brought a group of students, and again, it removed essentially the access to information barrier for them, and that they saw for themselves what is a possibility after high school. And then as they were touring the campus, we made sure to emphasize, oh, by the way, you can also be taking these classes while you're in high school. And so that's one effort that we've kind of undertaken, and we hope post-COVID or in the near future to be able to resume those types of activities. Another effort that we've undertaken is trying to present to all 10th grade civics and economics classes, English 2 classes, and those are classrooms where essentially every high school student sits. And so that does help us make sure so that if anything, when we do those classroom presentations, more students have access to hearing and learning about CCP. And so again, how do we get that information to the students? And then I do want to make one plug for the high school career coaches. I very, very thankful. I know that they are critical connection between high school students and our campuses. Their responsibilities do not solely revolve around CCP, but they are a link between high school students, especially since they work with students as early as 9th grade, all the way through 12th grade. And they do serve as a connection for students to learn about the different programs that A, community colleges offer overall, B, your unique community college, what they can offer for their high schools, and then C, what can they be doing while in high school? And so they do play a critical role in getting that information out to the students. The next challenge, one of our responses with school personnel is that one of the things I try to do is a few times a year, I attend local principals meetings. And so they have monthly gatherings, and I am mindful of their time, but I do try to get on their agenda a few times a year just to share data, to share success rates, to highlight success stories with them. Back in February, we actually hosted all of our local principals on our campus for a tour just to remind them of what we offer so that as they interact with students, we get buy-in from essentially the leader of the campus. And so we can get their buy-in. That also helps us navigate the other personnel involved in the authorization or the recommending of CCP enrollment. We are also fortunate in that one of our school systems invites us to monthly CTE Leadership Meetings. And so that's yet another opportunity to share the benefits of CCP and opportunities to access the program. So that is critical. Whenever possible, try to attend faculty meetings, because through that, we're able to get buy-in from more people in the school building. And because then they too can become advocates. So for example, if Mr. Rondon is teaching computer graphics at a high school and Isai is doing really well in Mr. Rondon's class, and then Mr. Rondon learns about CCP, he might say, hey, Isai, listen, I can only teach up to, this level of computer graphics, but did you know that Randolph has a graphic design program that you can start taking in 11th and 12th grade years? And I think you'd be a great fit for that. And so I think that's, again, a more holistic way of getting buy-in within the school building. The next component is parental involvement. I know anyone who works with CCP or with K-12 knows that parental involvement can be a challenge. I did want to kind of provide some context with Latinx parents. There is a cultural difference in parental involvement. I did want to just kind of clarify that in Latin America, school personnel are held in such high regards that parents essentially can take a hands-off approach because they are trusting that the school personnel are taking care of their children. And so that is a very different perspective to parental involvement. As you all know, here in the US, parents will show up as soon as there's an issue. And so that is a difference in just navigating parental involvement. And so one way that I've tried to kind of help with that is within the college, something that is within the purview, is I've gone to, at the community college, I've gone to their adult ESL classes just to make sure that the parents are aware of what their middle school and high school students can look forward to during the junior and senior years of high school. And so that is one effort that I try to do regularly. Another is that working with either at the school level or at the district level, parent engagement coordinators to piggyback on some of the events that they have. I'm very fortunate in that one of our school systems, the parent engagement coordinator happens to be bilingual. And so she does reach out. She and I partner a lot where we've done bilingual parent presentations where, they've been able to cover kind of the K-12 aspect of what parents need to be knowing with these students, working on with these students during high school. And then I'm able to come in and promote apprenticeship programs and CCP programs and just associate degree programs overall. And so again, the students and parents, they can be fluent, but there is this comfort level sometimes in having someone speak to them in their native language, and also a sense of solidarity. And just a quick plug, I know Juanes is in here with us. I've done bilingual parent nights with Juana before, and so they are very open to coming out to your schools and to partnering with you to help get information out. So that's a great resource that we should all capitalize on. As far as the transportation barrier or transportation challenge, one of the things that we've done is that we've actually taken some of our CCP classes out to the high schools. So we teach them on their campus. So that does curb or limit a little bit of the transportation barrier for students. I will acknowledge that it's not an instantaneous magical solution, and that, okay, they teach, Randolph teaches out at the high schools, they have a diverse student group participating in CCP. I got my wake-up call in the first semester that we taught classes out at high schools. The general psychology class, I went to that class on the very first day of the semester to help students log in to Moodle, to make sure they had their usernames and passwords. And so this is a Psych 150 class that, 90% of college majors are going to require. And when I showed up to the class, all 26 students enrolled in the class were white. And so just knowing the demographics of this school, that was a wake-up call in that, okay, we've removed one barrier, but there's still more work to do. And so that kind of goes back to the gatekeepers in the school. I immediately was like, how did this happen? I can walk to the cafeteria right now and not be able to count how many students of color in general are in that school. And so again, that's one attempt that we've made is taking the classes out to the high schools. That has helped now. If you look at our demographics in fall 20, much more diversity than we did back then. Another component is that within the CCP guidelines, 9th and 10th graders do have options for CTE pathways. Probably more, but I'm not going to get into that. And so one of the things we've undertaken at Randolph is that we did embrace one of the CTE pathways for 10th graders, and we started an automotive academy with one of our high schools. And that was automotive systems technology as well as collision repair, where the high school was able to provide transportation for those students. And so the high school was essentially busing the students to our campus during the 3rd and 4th block so that those students could participate in this automotive academy. And I would say this is just a conservative number, a conservative guess, is that from those automotive academy participants, I would say about 70% of them have been Latinx students. And so I think that that's also helped remove that barrier. And I do want to be mindful of time and just touch on the finances. One of the things that we're fortunate at Randolph is that we waive all fees for students. Our local public school systems purchase the textbooks for their students. However, we do work with school counselors, social workers, student advocates, administration to find resources for students, because sometimes, as you know, in welding, they have to buy helmets and gloves. Graphic design, they do have specific materials they must buy. In collision repair, they have to buy paint suits and masks. And so we do work closely with school personnel to try to help eliminate that the financial barrier for students. And so again, just in summary, these are some of the efforts and responses that we've made to try to help eliminate or curb some of the challenges for students.
Disappearing microphones. Thank you, Isai. That was awesome. And I really hope that folks listening in got some good ideas with some of the responses that you guys have undertaken there at Randolph to really improve access for students to this opportunity. And that gives us a great way to sort of segue into Marvin, who's going to share some more with us about a response that Sampson has instituted on their campus with their Promise program. But just a second before that, we did want to just take a moment to ask this question: who's on your campus? So it's a little bit of a loaded one, I guess, just in the sense that as we all take a few moments today to really think about our Latin students and what we're doing on our campuses to really reach out to engage our Latin students, you do want to have a place to sort of start. And what we just wanted to take a moment here to mention, and in the interest of time, I'm actually not going to go out to the dashboards just yet, but we just wanted to mention to you what opportunity you have, everyone has really, to access some very crucial information about sort of where your campus has been and where your campus is now in regards to who you're serving on your campuses. This is just a little quick snapshot that takes a look at enrollment, and you can see it's looking at all programs. You can see we're looking from fall 2015 to fall 2019. And you can look here at the legend to your right that shows you the color here, looking at our Hispanic student enrollment just across the system. And as you know, if you've taken some time to look at these dashboards, you can actually look at your specific campus, which would be a great place to start, again, as you're beginning to think about how you're going to engage students in your community. And so Marvin's community, they have had wonderful success with their Promise program that he is going to share some information with us about today. Marvin.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, the first time I hear about a Promise program, most of our counties around us were doing this Promise where they were covering tuition for students who graduate from high school. And I thought, how in the world we're going to do this? Southeastern North Carolina, rural counties, the economy is not very well, so where we can get the money to cover tuition for those students? Well, our Dean of Advancement worked her magic with the College Foundation, and then we work it as, we call it the Samson Promise. The way we publish this one to the student is we ask the question, do you like free tuition? So everybody likes free tuition. So the student then get interested in what is the Samson Promise program. First, the way we look at it is, okay, students have to complete their FAFSA. So if they complete their FAFSA, they're going to look for money for tuition that the FAFSA does not cover. Then we look then other scholarship from the foundation or other scholarship that can cover tuition. And then if there's nothing else that can cover tuition, the Samson Promise kicks in and covers. Now, we're limited for 4 semesters. Why? We expect the student to, in 4 semesters, complete their associate degree. Most of the students take 60 through 65 credit hours to complete programs. So if the student enroll full-time for those 4 semesters, they can finish in 4 semesters. Now, one requirement is they have to graduate from a Samson County high school. It could be one of the 5 high schools in Samson County, public school or private school. We have 3 private schools in Samson County, and then we have homeschoolers who have been finishing their high school, so they also can participate in the Samson Promise program. Once they decided, okay, I want to try this, I want to go to Samson Community College, they have to do the college application. They have a timeline to complete this one is March 1st. If they complete it after March 1st, they cannot qualify into the Samson Promise program. Now, we look for their high school GPA. And it was determined that an unweighted high school GPA of 3.0 or higher will allow the student to apply for the Samson Promise program. But also they have to do the RDS, a residency certification that they are in-state students, because the Samson Promise cannot pay for out-of-state students. It's too expensive to pay for that. Then they have to go and complete their FAFSA. They need to complete it before March 1st to see how much of the FAFSA will cover for their tuition. Then they have to complete the foundation application, and we selected a tax day, April 15th of each year, so they can do the foundation application. And we require the student to get full-time 12 credit hours or more. If you look for an associate in art or science of 60 credit hours, at least they need 15 credit hours per semester to complete on time. So we require them to enroll for those 12 to 15 and complete those 12 to 15 credit hours each semester. If they start dropping classes, they won't be extended for the next semester. Now, they need to keep that eligibility. They need to keep a college GPA of 2.5 or higher to keep for the next semester. Also, they have to keep a good conduct on campus. No cheating, no issues with any other student, no, they need to keep everything right to continue with the program. Also, we are not covering textbooks, supplies, or fees. Now, the Samson Foundation reserves the right to limit the amount of scholars they award every year. For example, we started in 2019, for 2019 with 12 students who got the Samson Promise. It was around 30 something applications. But this fall 2014, this fall 2020, there was around 50 applications. But after we look and cover everything, only 14 students qualified for the Samson Promise, and 2 of them were Latinos. So looking for those things, we were able to offer a Promise program, and we highly encourage students to go do the CCP program, because at the long run for the Samson Promise program, the more credit they complete as a CCP student, there's less credit the Samson program will pay for them, so we can use that money for other years. So we combine both. We have a strong CCP program. By the way, of those 14 students taking, who were authorized for the Samson Promise program, most of them got multiple credit as CCP students in their respective schools. So for us, we can have a good participation of CCP students come to the college campus as Samson Promise student, and then they can transfer to other universities, or they complete their CTE programs and then they can go to the workforce. Michelle?
Awesome. Marvin has some really great data to share that we wanted to take a look at on the dashboards, and I think we might have a little bit of time to actually go back and do that now. So I'm going to go back and just take a look at Sampson Community College. So if you guys can just bear with me here. Hopefully you're seeing my screens. My screen is so that you can see the site for the dashboards. And again, this is embedded in the PowerPoint, so you guys can have quick, easy access to it.
Michelle, I'm only seeing your slide. We don't see your screen.
Ah, okay. Well, let's see if we can do that. All right, so hopefully you've got my screen now. Does everybody see that?
We can see the dashboard link, yes.
Perfect. All right. So here, Marvin, if you will, I'm going to try to get to Sampson in particular. We're looking at the enrollment and FTE for curriculum. So let's hope that it cooperates with us here. And we're going to go look at demographics. And we're going to focus on, in particular, Sampson. Community College, and I'm going to look at race and ethnicity. All right, so hopefully you can see this, and would you like to talk with us through this, Marvin, just to share with us about some of the demographics at your school? And again, just so that people are aware, we have Sampson here, and then the system here at the bottom of the screen. So Marvin?
Yes, when we look the enrollment, we have 20% of our Sampson County residents are considered Hispanic. So when we look and did a special effort to recruit those students, we have seen every year we have been getting more and more Hispanic students to be able to enroll in our community college. Last year, we reached 28% of our enrollment were Hispanic. For 2020, now we reached 29% of our enrolled students are Hispanic. When I look the number coming from the CCP program, 21% of our CCP enrollment are Hispanic. And surprisingly, our early college student, we have 265 students in early college, 61% of the early college students are Hispanic Latino. And when we look for the curriculum students, removing the early college and removing the CCP students, we still have around 20% of regular students, curriculum students, to be Hispanic Latino. I don't think they have been happening by any accident, because for years the college have been working to get this enrollment, specifically this enrollment, to go up and allow those students to enroll. If we look back to 2002, only 1% of the college enrollment were Hispanic Latino. So in the last 18 years, we have been working hard to increase those numbers.
That is amazing when you take the time to just look at the increase in enrollment that they've been able to do. And what's even more telling, I think, especially as you guys in your individual communities began to sort of delve into this and look at the demographics on your campus and who indeed is on your campus. What's interesting is when you take a look at the demographics of the area that your college is situated in. So just your typical demographics in your community, and you lay that next to the demographics of your institution, does one reflect the other? Does the demographics at your institution reflect the demographics of your community? And you can see here with Sampson, it sounds like they're outpacing that, both in their CCP enrollment, all throughout, sounds like both Pathways and CIHS students. And that has just continued on at the institution post-high school. Just looking at their general enrollment here, you can tell that efforts have really been put in place for outreach to this particular population to ensure that the institution is reflective of the community that it's serving. So kudos to you guys, Marvin, for all the work that you've done down there at Sampson to make this a reality, and especially with the Promise program as an extension to help even more students be able to participate at the college and to continue on with their education. I'm going to stop sharing here just a second, just so we can get back to the PowerPoint. So bear with me, folks. And then I meant to ask, were there any questions that folks had, or Susan, I wasn't sure what we were doing about questions.
While you're getting us back to the screen, Michelle, if I could just make one statement. In those Tableau dashboards that you were just traversing your way through, there is the opportunity to disaggregate the data even further by age. And so that might be interesting, you know, an interesting disaggregation that individuals might want to take to really see of those percentages that are really impressive at Randolph. You know, what is the age and gender disaggregation look like? And that's available on the dashboards as well. So thanks for sharing that link.
Yes, awesome. Again, we did want to just take a couple of minutes to try to wrap up here and again, leave some time for questions that folks may have, but sort of leave you with some thoughts, sort of some closing thoughts, and maybe even some actionable steps that you can take back to your respective institutions around what you can do that's within your purview to leverage both CCP and Promise programs on your campus to reach out to recruit Latin students to our campuses all across the state. And our first bullet here sort of goes back to, if you can think back to the definition of CCP and just that kind of quick overview of the legislation and what it provides. And as you can see, this bullet is that CCP provides an opportunity for every student in North Carolina to have access to higher education. Just let that sink in for just a minute. It literally, the legislation and this particular program provide an opportunity for every student in our state. If you take a look at the eligibility requirements for both the college transfer and the CTE pathways, there are opportunities for students, especially even in our CTE pathways, where students can be admissible and deemed eligible to participate in this program by having a recommendation from their high school